I don't have the right gear, or I don't have a dedicated space to record my YouTube videos is a lot of common things I see in comments when I go into other people's lives that are around starting YouTube channels. So I decided to record this video to just show that actually all the expensive gear that you can think of and having dedicated space or a lack of having a dedicated space shouldn't stop you. So I'm filming this at the moment on my smartphone. So it's, you know, a Google Pixel 9. It has got a Rode Wireless Me mic plugged into it. So there's a receiver plugged in there. And I've got this here, which is the transmitter with a little dead cat on the top, if you're wondering what this little fluffy bit is. So that's the only, that and the tripod that this phone's attached to, which I think cost £20 from Amazon. The microphone was £100. So, you know, if we take for granted the fact that we all have a smartphone these days, then this setup has cost me £120, which might still sound a lot of money to some people, which I understand, but, you know, even if you didn't have a microphone, you could still set up your phone on a £20 tripod and film yourself in a quiet room such as this. The microphone built into your phone will still pick up your audio. You will still be audible. People will still be able to hear what you're saying. It might not be amazing quality, but my thought process is that, you know, if you have a budget of £150, for example, then, you know, I would spend the bulk of that on a microphone, and I'd also get a tripod. Just because you don't need a tripod, you could put the phone stacked up high on a table, stacked it on against some books. It's a little bit more fidgety doing it that way, especially if you're filming on a phone, because unless you're using the front camera, which I wouldn't recommend because it's not as good as the camera on the back of your phone, then you can't really see yourself. So setting up and making sure you're in frame before you start is a bit more difficult. So that's the only reason I suggest that reserve some of your budget to buy a relatively cheap tripod. And I have a link to this tripod actually in my description of this video. I also have a link to the Rode Wireless Me microphones as well, if you're interested, and all the other gear that I use typically. But this video is just to show and illustrate that you don't need to have a huge amount of gear. So I'm filming this on my phone, and I'm just sitting in my living room, and I'm using natural light that's coming in through this window. So it's non-direct sunlight. The sun is over there, and I've closed the curtains on the window on that side of the room where the sun's poking through. And I've got this natural light here. So it's non-direct light, which you can get from any window. If where you're filming it is direct light shining right through the window, then that's going to leave quite harsh. You're going to get quite harsh shadows on your face, and it's not going to look particularly good. But if you are on a budget and you don't have, you know, a key light or anything like that, you could, depending on the size of your window, this is quite a big window, but you know, you could cover it with a big sheet of white paper, and that would naturally diffuse the light. And by diffuse, that just means it's taking away that harshness, and it's going to leave a softer light on you, which is obviously you are your subject in these types of videos. So you could do it that way. So, you know, people talk about having like a dedicated studio space for YouTube. I have personally chosen to do that, not because there's anything wrong within here. It's more because I very rarely get an opportunity in the house on my own. I've usually got my wife here, my 2 kids, and it gets noisy. So I tend to not record videos in the house, and I have a detached garage, and I've set up a little studio, makeshift studio, in the upstairs of that garage, and I go there so I can record, so I'm uninterrupted. But I thought, you know, if you don't have that space, that might put people off. You know, some people think you need to dedicate a room to setting up a studio, and the answer is to that you don't. You can set up wherever you like. Now, if you want to set up proper gear in every time for a new video, then you maybe don't want to have to be setting that up each and every time you record a video in your living room. That's why a dedicated space is often quite good, because you can just have your setup as you like it, and you don't have that time wasted every time setting up and getting everything in the right positions and all that kind of stuff. But if you're doing it like this, just using natural light from a window and just putting your phone on a small tripod, it takes literally seconds to set up. So there's no reason you can't do it this way. So as I say, the only reason I use my dedicated space is more just because I never get the house to myself. But I came back from a walk and the house was empty, and I thought, I'm going to do this video now just to show the point. So, you know, as long as you're relatively well lit from a window, and if you have a smartphone with, you know, a reasonable camera on it, most smartphones will record full HD now. I don't think there's many smartphones still around that don't record full HD. You don't have to worry about 4K, that doesn't matter. It's only for YouTube. It doesn't have to be 4K. And even with an inbuilt microphone, you will still be able to be heard if you're in a quiet room. But I didn't want to kind of suggest not spending any money at all, because I do think a good microphone will set you apart from people that don't use microphones. This did not, you know, for me, I don't personally think this broke the bank for the quality I get from this. You know, £100, you can spend a lot of money on microphones, but even if you didn't want to spend £100, you can get lav mics, I think they're called. I want to say LAV, I don't know if that's right. And they're just like a little one that just clips on. It's the same kind of principle as this, it's just not wireless. And you would wirely, is that a word? Plug that into your phone. And that can work. That's okay. You can do that too. And you'll get them for 15, 20, 30 pounds, something like that. So you don't have to go down this route. But for me, the ease of this, the fact that I don't have a wire connecting me to something, I think the quality and the fact that it is wireless, it was worth the spend. But it just depends on your budget. So yeah, I mean, if you know, lack of gear or lack of a dedicated space is what's putting you off, you know, if it's either of those or potentially both of those, I would say just do this. You just, you know, try and sit by a window that hasn't got the sun glazing through it. You know, if it does have the sun glazing through, perhaps you can do it at a different time of day when the sun isn't directly coming in. If you don't have the benefit of picking a different time, as I said, you could cover that window with even just like a bed sheet. You know, you could put a bed sheet over the curtain rail, and that will give you a natural diffused light. You know, so just a white bed sheet would do the job. But yeah, you know, just find a window, sit by it, get your phone out, possibly on a cheap tripod like this one, or you know, resting against a stack of books, something like that, and just start recording. And you know, yeah, you don't need to have, you know, this. Hopefully, when you watch this back, you'll see that you can see me well, you can hear me well. You know, it's not a, you know, I mean, it's not an amazing space behind me, but it doesn't really matter, because yeah, you know, a nice backdrop can help add to the viewer experience, but really people are coming to watch your videos for the content, what you're giving them. You know, so where the setting, where you are, isn't hugely important. You know, you could film these outside, you know, so if you've got a, you know, again, probably, you know, think about where the sun is. You'd probably not want the sun directly in your face, but you could do this outside. Obviously wind and other noise starts to come into play then, cars passing by and that type of stuff. So that's where you may want a slightly better mic. As I say, this dead cat will sort of kind of drown out that kind of sound of any kind of wind and stuff like that. So, you know, I would say if you're going to do it outside, I would say definitely think of a mic of some description, rather than just relying on your phone. But if you're inside, you don't even need a mic, in all honesty. You know, it will improve things. I think viewers do appreciate good audio, but as long as they can hear what you're saying and you're getting your message across and therefore getting your value across to your viewer, even that's not really needed. So yeah, if lack of gear is stopping you, this is proof. You know, you don't need huge fancy setups. You don't need a big studio with big fancy lights and, you know, a £2,000 camera. You don't need that stuff to get started. You know, what you need to get started is good content, you know, good ideas, and good value that you can give to your audience. If you've got that, then record it on whatever you've got available, in whatever setting you have available, and just publish it. So that's my thought for today. If you've liked this video and it's inspired you to take your smartphone out and start recording, drop me a comment, let me know what you're going to do, let me know when you're going to start, because I'd love to know that you guys are not going to mess about. You're going to go out there and you're going to get started on YouTube. Give this video a big thumbs up if you wouldn't mind. That would really help my channel too. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing for more YouTube stuff. And if I don't speak to you again before the next video, I'm not likely to speak to you again before the next video. I don't know why I said that. Have a great week, and yeah, I'll hopefully see you in the next video, and yeah, have a good one. Bye for now.